for joining. Good morning to everyone else that's here. I do hope this is, I'm just double checking the stream to make sure it is going ahead, and hopefully we are there. Yeah, okay, cool. It is going. Good. Right, so today, as you saw from the title, I'm going to tell you how I lost just about $8,000 from cryptocurrency. And this is 100% true. This is while I've been in YouTube in the last couple of years. In the beginning of 2018, I'm going to tell you exactly how that came about. Now, if you do have any questions throughout this, then put it in the chat and I'll make sure to answer them before the end. Because if you ask the questions right as I'm saying I'm about to leave, then obviously I can't answer the question. But if you have a question, drop it in the chat and I'll make sure to get to it before we finish the live stream. Right, so cryptocurrency has been a massive trend over the last few years, but for anyone that's followed it, Bitcoin basically exploded in the end of 2017. It went from around $300, the middle of 2017, to $20,000 or close to $20,000 in the beginning of 2018. So over just like a few months, the whole cryptocurrency market, and Bitcoin especially, completely exploded. And you had loads of these ICOs popping up, which are initial coin offerings, where it was basically like, it's the same as an IPO works in the stock market. It was, hey, we've got this new cryptocurrency coin, we're going to bring it to market, put it on an exchange, and it will go up massively in value because the whole market was going crazy. And for that year, the ICOs were just going mental. There was new companies and new coins popping up all the time, which just exploded over and over again. And you could just put money into an ICO, and some of them were doing 100 times in the first couple of weeks. So you could put 100 quid in, and then it would be worth £10,000 like 2 weeks later. It was crazy. And I learned about crypto, and I started looking at it properly around September 2017, which was a really fortunate time to get involved and start learning about it, because that was just before the whole market started exploding. And my initial way of learning about it, and because I'd heard about Bitcoin years ago, but I didn't realize there was this whole other world around crypto, which was like, you know, Ethereum was blasting off and loads of these other altcoins were taking off. And I learned about it from the social media marketing manager of a company called Steemit. We were on a trip together in Greece, and this lady who was managing the Twitter for Steemit, which is another coin, the Steem coin, which I'll get to in a minute. She basically told me about what was going on and the crazy money that was being put into it, the amount she was being paid for just managing Twitter, and how this whole sort of market that no one was really talking about was about to explode. And that got me interested, because Steemit was a social media platform based on cryptocurrency. And I say was, it still is. But it was basically another place of putting my videos and putting social posts out there to earn in cryptocurrency. And that was it seemed amazing to me, but I didn't really fully understand it at the time. But I thought I'll check it out and see how it works. So I joined this in 2017 around September, and I started posting to Steemit then. I started posting to DTube, which was based on Steemit, and that was the YouTube version the crypto version of YouTube on Steemit. And I started posting all my videos there and didn't really think of anything of it until a couple of months later, when crypto really started exploding. And this is when the whole market was just going parabolic. Morning guys, morning Lyndall, morning Boring Entertainment. And I can just show you quickly right now. So if I show you this chart, this is the chart of Bitcoin from the beginning of 2014, way back when, to now. And you can see in the middle there, or just like middle slightly to the right, you got 2018 where it did explode and it completely took off. And if you can see, I got in there around the third quarter of 2017, just before that massive curve straight up. And this is where everyone was going crazy for it. I was lucky enough to be in at the right time, and I had some money in it, but I was also set up on Steemit and on DTube. So then when it did take off, I was able to start profiting from it. And this is pardon me. This is how it worked. You would basically post a video to Steam and DTube, and then you'd get rewarded directly in their coin, which was Steam. And Steam at the time, around 2018, if I go over here, was worth about $8 to one coin. And if I put up a video, some of those videos were getting 100 upvotes, or like 100 Steam dollars of upvotes, which equated back to 8 times 100, $800 in USD. And that was how crazy it was. So at the time, in January 2018, I could put up one video, and this happened. I remember it was a video of Vietnam, and that video would get $800 in upvotes in Steam currency, which if I wanted to, I could just transfer that straight back into USD or GBP, and it would go into my bank account. Just for posting one video, which would only get, not even that many views, maybe a few hundred, 1,000 views. Not a few 100,000, but like a few hundred to 1,000 views. That video would earn like $600, $700. And it was mental. And I didn't really appreciate at the time how crazy it was, because I didn't want to break the golden goose, I didn't want to over post loads of videos to there, just in case I would stop getting those upvotes and I would stop earning that in Steam. So what I did is I just occasionally uploaded a video here and there, and it was a nice kind of side gig, and I was like, oh cool, that's some money coming in. But I didn't really think too much about it. And I also I still kind of had the idea that crypto was just going to go on, and Bitcoin was going to push up, because at the point where if I go back to this right now, at that point where crypto was its peak, there in the beginning of 2018, a lot of people were still kind of thinking that it was going to take off and go up and up further and further, and this was just the beginning of a new paradigm. This was a new ecosystem. The market cap of crypto was nothing compared to the stock market, and it was just going to keep going. And of course, as you can see there, it didn't. The Bitcoin dropped, down to like $5,000, so down to 25% of what it was. But a lot of altcoins and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, like let's say Steam it here, dropped from being around $8, so $8 Steam, down to what is now, they're 10 cents and now around 20 cents. So I can't figure out the percentage, but that's like less than, is it like a 0.25% of what it was? Is that right? That sounds crazy. No, I'm not sure, but that's not even. Yeah, that's my maths is off there, but it's less than 1% of what it was, and that that value has just decreased dramatically in what it was. So if I just held in Steam, I'd be worth I'd be worth so much less than I was at the time then. And unfortunately, that's what I did. I didn't hold all of it in Steam, but I held in various other altcoins and other cryptocurrencies, around $8,000 that I thought, okay, this is great. This is an investment for the future. This is going to keep going up and up. And, I didn't take out at this high. And so, long story short, I lost a lot of the value. Because there's a lesson here, because there's this great chart here, the psychology of a market cycle. And I can learn from this, by the way. I'm completely okay. I was lucky enough that I did also take profits, and I took money out, and I still made money from it, and I had money coming in. I could have lost a lot more, and I could have made a lot more. But at least now I can learn from it, and then apply this to kind of what might happen now, or what is happening now in the world. So this is the market cycle of any market where it goes crazy, or any bubble, and this is exactly what happened in crypto, and this is also what could happen again, and possibly what's happening right now in the stock market, but that's up for you to decide. So you have this massive phase at the beginning. So let's say this disbelief, this rally will fail like all others. It's not like a real market rally. Hope a recovery is possible. Optimism. So this is where it really starts taking off, right here. And if you compare that to the Bitcoin, let's say that is the hope and optimism stage. You can't see, that around there is that hope optimism stage. And just look how similar these charts are, by the way. And this is theory, and that's real life. So optimism, and then you get into the belief where everyone starts like jumping in. Wow, this is amazing. The thrill, I'm going to buy more on margin, got to tell everyone to buy. And that's what they say is a real indicator in markets, because I mean, once you're a barber and once other people start telling you how you need to get involved in Bitcoin, which is what was happening. I remember getting in a taxi and someone being like, have you heard about Bitcoin? Yeah, okay, now we're probably in a bubble. And that sort of point there where it all starts taking off, then you get the euphoria, like everyone's going to be rich, this is all amazing, oh my god, we're so smart, which, like I said, is the point where I just held around the top there, because it's only easy to see these things in hindsight, and you can't see it at the time unless unless you manage to time it very well. And then you get the long rally downwards, or the long crash, or bear market, or whatever you want to call it, the long way down, which has been the last few years here for Bitcoin. And I'm using Bitcoin as like the kind of thing for cryptocurrency, because Bitcoin still has so much of the market that if I looked at a chart of the cryptocurrency market, it would look almost identical. So this is kind of what we had for the last few years now. If I held there, which I did for, a large portion of it, then it was now been down here. Now, over the last couple of months, two reasons really. Now, over the last couple of months, Bitcoin has massively rallied. One, as you move towards the halvening event, which we've just passed actually, which you should go look up. I won't explain it in here. And then secondly, because of the whole way the world is right now, it's all started rallying again. So this is where you need to decide, is this portion of the market here? Are we here? Are we here? Or where does it play in? And you can use this for any market cycle. It's really, it does apply. Obviously, it only applies perfectly in hindsight, but you can use this and you can kind of anticipate where the market is. And for me, it was a real lesson to try and figure out what point we're actually in, because although at the time I was kind of thinking that, and I had people that knew a lot more than me saying, they said there's a saying, beware the shoe shine boy. Once the kid that shines your shoes in Wall Street starts telling you which stocks to buy, it's time to get out. And that's definitely what kind of happened with crypto. Once everyone was saying, wow, Bitcoin's amazing, and loads of people that had no idea about investing, myself included, were making good money with crypto, maybe it was time to get out. And maybe that's kind of where the stock market is right now. For any of you that are exposed to it and playing with it, once everyone in America, like the amount of trading accounts that have been created in the last couple of months, the amount of people piling their money into investing, just looking at YouTube and looking at how well investing videos are doing right now, maybe that is a sign of being up here, euphoria, I'm a genius, we're all going to be rich. That's just my 2 cents on it. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying that's possible, and by looking at this and learning from the past, you can kind of maybe see where we are. It could also be, this is the trouble with it though, it could be around here, and it could be a much bigger rally before you then get this massive decline. But there is always bubbles, and there are always massive rallies, and there are always massive declines. What goes up eventually has to come down. So even though in the last few months we've had this massive rally and this massive recovery in kind of all markets, that eventually has to come down, and so you have to kind of prepare yourself for that and figure it out. And not figure it out, but you have to understand that it will, and understand the psychology of the market cycle, and think, okay, this is where we are right now, where is it going to head in the future? So getting back to my personal story with it, I would say I lost around $8,000 in cryptocurrency that, had I taken it out, I would have got to maybe invest that in the stock market, which still continued on a bigger upward trend over the last few years, put into gear or put into business or something like that. Instead, it just whittled down slowly and slowly, and I ended up taking out what I still had left in the market, a couple years later, for a lot less than it was originally worth. And that is obviously the complete opposite to what you should do in investing. I held at the top and then sold at closer to the bottom. That's the wrong way around. But that's kind of the psychology of markets. And that's, although it's the opposite of what you should do, it was a lesson for me to take more profits on the way up and then reinvest those profits into other things. Try and balance it instead of putting all your eggs in one basket. The nice part about this for me, and the way I'm very fortunate, is that because I found out about Steemit and DTube and the crypto social medias back then, it was all earned. I didn't actually put any of my own money into it. It was all earned through just creating videos and getting paid in cryptocurrency for those videos, getting paid by Steemit and DTube into their tokens, and then just using those tokens within the actual cryptocurrency market. I never put any of my own money into it, and so even though I lost, like, let's say $8,000, whatever it wasn't ever money that I actually put in myself. It was just I gained it and I lost it. Easy come, easy go. And the nice thing about this as well is that I've continued using and posting to those platforms since then for the last couple of years. So I've kept an eye on it. I've kept averaging in, and I've kept an eye on the cryptocurrency market, and also I've got those platforms. So then if it does take off again, which is possible, but maybe not to the same level it did before, or who knows, maybe even more, then I'm still set up in the right way to be able to profit from this, and the right way to so that I still understand it and can have a stake in it. That's why I said in another video recently, I still do hold Bitcoin, and everything I've earned in Steemit and DTube and all of that, I've just averaged back into Bitcoin rather than taking it out. And while I'm not really looking at any of the other altcoins right now, that is potentially a play for the future, and I think it is definitely worth keeping an eye on, because if you can understand this, and if you can really, I think, get your head around this and how people's psychology works during market cycles and during bubbles, then you can start to anticipate. You can never time it perfectly. And I said in another video, I wouldn't try, and anyone that tries to time everything consistently will eventually get burnt over the long run. But if you can understand that maybe we're around here, or maybe we're around here, well, then there's an opportunity there to reallocate and to put some of that money into other pots, take profits, and make sure you're more diversified. Because if you had, this is the same chart here, a bit simpler. So if you had a massive, let's say whatever you're holding, let's say it's Bitcoin, and you took off from here, $10,000 up to $200,000 or whatever. If you're trying to have a diversified portfolio, well, now it's going to be massively weighted towards Bitcoin because you just had massive growth in that part of it compared to your other parts of your portfolio that didn't grow. So my lesson from this was, if that happens, to reallocate and put some of that back into the other parts to try and stay diversified. I'm still learning about this all the time, and I think that was a painful lesson in hindsight. At the time, I didn't care so much because I was like, it's not money I put in myself anyway. It's all free money. But now, if I think back on it, I think, well, that was stupid. That was definitely, if I'd just been a bit smarter with it, and it's always easy to say that in hindsight, but I'd been a bit smarter with it, then I could have made a lot more out of that opportunity. Yeah, and that's what happened. And I think with this, it's always, as long as you learn from it, then it's a lesson. It's an expensive lesson, but it's a lesson for the future. Linda, I got my fingers burnt too, but not as big as you did back in 2018. Big question. Do you think, and sorry to hear that, mate, I think a lot of people did. And it's actually, before I get to the question, it's actually, there's also a strong case for that right now. Because 60% of Bitcoin right now hasn't moved in 6 months. So people's wallets, people that are holding Bitcoin right now, 60% of it hasn't moved at all. And there's an argument there that a lot of people that bought in at the top of the market have just held their Bitcoin waiting for it to recover, because they all got burnt as well. And then when you do start seeing approaching 20,000 or whatever, there'll be a massive sell-off again because people will be recovering their losses. I think a lot of people did. A lot of people jumped in then. Big question, do you think crypto is still something speculative, or could it be something similar to precious metals that holds value? I think, in my opinion, Bitcoin, its original use case and its original intention. Well, who's to say? The guy that created Satoshi Nakamoto, he wrote the white paper for it, and he wrote it as a currency. But I mean, for me, there's not a great deal of use cases for Bitcoin that actually work, and the transaction time for Bitcoin is still relatively slow compared to other cryptocurrencies and even other real world currencies. So I think the use case as a currency, in my eyes, it doesn't work. But as a store of value and as kind of a hedge against fiat currencies, it does work in that way. So they kind of refer to it more now as the digital gold. And I think that's kind of what its place is going to be, because it's got that limited supply of 21 million. It's got like scarcity. It's got all of the things that gold should have, but it doesn't really have the use case that people initially wanted it to. But as that kind of leader, that first to market, I think it does have a place as a store of value and a hedge against the more traditional financial systems. That's the way I see it, and I think that's the way a lot of the market sees it now as well. Is it's a hedge against massive inflation or deflation. It's a hedge against the world going to shit, basically. Could it be something? Yeah, and could it be something similar to a precious metal that holds value? Yeah, basically, that's my take on it. When something is gone, there will come. Yeah, I mean, whenever in every chaos there's opportunity, right? Whenever something bad happens, if you learn from it, it's not necessarily something bad. It's only a failure if you don't learn from it, and other quotes like that. But that's the way I see it. As long as you learn from something, then you didn't necessarily fail. You just took another step with it. So I'd like to say that next time this happens, I'm going to sell off at the top. I'm not. That's not true. Obviously, it's going to be incredibly difficult to time it, so you always sell off the top. But I've learned to take more profits, and I've learned that side of it. Any tips on individuals to speak? Pardon me. Any tips on individual sectors to invest in your opinion? Any emerging markets you see as a good opportunity to invest now? I'll go in another video after this. I can't log in now. I'll go into what sectors I'm in right now. I've been listening to a bunch of people recently, and they have tipped emerging markets to do very well in the near future. Because although loads of money is piling back into US right now, and people are piling money back into the dollar and into the stock market, there's going to be this over the next few years, because this is, again, just opinion. This is an idea that I'm going to try and express now. Over the next few years, there is a likelihood that we're going to see like a shortening of supply chains, because one of the big scary things about this whole lockdown and about people closing down countries, and what we could still see in the future with different countries closing at different times, is how fragile our ecosystem is with having long supply chains. So if China shuts down and we can't receive all of our medicine and our PPE and everything from China, or maybe we don't want to receive it from China in the future because of other political reasons, and maybe we just don't want that, you're going to see a shortening of supply chains. And as other countries shut down here and there, you might see other shortenings of supply chains to try and make things more local rather than so heavily globalized. And if that plays out, there'll be other emerging markets that will really take off, that are maybe closer to Europe or closer to North America, that we hadn't used before because we were so heavily reliant on China. And I saw someone talking about this recently, that within Europe, one of the good plays there over the next 10 years was possibly, as an idea, Morocco or Iran or Turkey, or countries that are around Europe that have a shorter supply to get back to Europe, if that makes sense. So that's an idea for myself personally as a sector to be in over the next 12 months. From everything I've looked at, I just can't, although there's like, I am putting money into some individual stocks, which I'll go through in a future video. Maybe tomorrow or the next day I can actually show you my portfolio properly this time, rather than just talking about it. I am putting into some individual stocks as disruptive stocks for the future, but in terms of the best play I can possibly see from everything I've been listening to, learning, and everything over the last few months is gold. I can't see, I mean, gold's a great store of value anyway. I can't see it massively going down, but if the things play out like a lot of people are predicting them to, with, I mean, a recession, a full-blown possibly depression, with inflation or deflation, it all plays well for gold. So, I mean, as as someone that would just want to invest something and leave it and forget, I think over the next few years, gold has to be one of the most solid plays. And by extension, Bitcoin. But obviously, Bitcoin is more risky and more volatile than gold. So yeah, I mean, that's my take on that. Check out Hedera Hashgraph. It's a cryptocurrency with, I haven't heard of it, that's interesting, with Google, IBM, Deutsche Telekom, LG, and it's on its governing board. It's very undervalued right now. Cool. Yeah, thank you. I definitely will check it out. I hadn't heard of it myself. And I was thinking about this recently, that although for the last couple of years, I haven't really been looking into other altcoins at all, really, or other cryptocurrencies even. I've just been putting into Bitcoin because, as I said, that's kind of a hedge. I definitely should, for the near future, start looking at more individual ones. I think it's very difficult to predict the winner, but there are going to be some that are definite winners out of all of them for sure. You know, China is just about to finish its own cryptocurrency as well. They've got the digital RMB that will be released soon. So they've already moved away from cash a couple of years ago. Like, even when I went there, it's very difficult to pay for anything on cash. It's all with WeChat and Alipay. So like, they're already moving away from that, but now they're actually going to force people to use their own cryptocurrency. Facebook has Libra, and although they've tried to separate themselves from Libra so they're not caught up in any regulatory issues, they've created their own cryptocurrency that they're going to get people to use through Facebook called Libra. So they're growing, and they're going to be used more and more. So if you can pick a couple winners and have like a few spec plays in each, then I do think that's probably worth it. And yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'll write it down and go and check it out after this Hedera Hashgraph. Yeah, it sounds interesting. I think with any of these, like, I would say to anyone, and my dad's invested in stocks and shares and markets for the last 20 years, and he started listening to me about crypto a couple of years ago and got in at the wrong time. But I said to him, and I'd say to anyone like surrounding this, if you do make any play with crypto, you have to be willing for it to go to zero. It's either it could go up 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, or it could go to zero. You know, that's not so likely. I mean, it's fairly impossible with things like gold and currencies and some companies. But for crypto, that is a real possibility. So you have to be willing to lose your original investment and then take profits on the way up. Cool trial and error, but we learn with skin in the game and experience. Definitely, mate. Like some people would say when they start investing, play around with a dummy portfolio. But I think it just doesn't work. And a dummy portfolio, for anyone that doesn't know, it's basically just like having play money, and then you play around with, let's say you give yourself 100,000 in play money and create a portfolio and track it and see how well you did. But I think unless you have real skin in the game, you don't make those same emotional decisions, because we are emotional beings. Unless you have proper money in it, then you don't react in the same way that you would with real money in it. So that you can have a dummy portfolio and start seeing how things work, until you put a little bit of money in, I personally think that you don't get the same reactions that you would give. So play around with it, go and check it out, but then you learn by actually having skin in the game. And don't let that first time your fingers get burnt put you off, because if you learn from it, then eventually you will make money from it. It says Hedera Hashgraph's partnership with Google will generate $1.9 billion by 2024. I heard the same thing about China putting the final touches on the cryptocurrency. Yeah, I've heard a couple of experts talk about it recently, and they kind of seem they've been ahead of the game with a few of these things, and they're looking like they are also taking full, what's the right word, taking full advantage of this whole lockdown situation right now, and they're just going a million miles ahead with things. Like I saw a video this morning where they're doing quite a few things now where, like, I mean, the security regulations, the security procedures, anyway, they're basically changing Hong Kong while the world's looking the other way, and they get massive protests in Hong Kong. They're moving ahead with this cryptocurrency, the RMB. They're putting more military in the Malaysia gap between Malaysia, Vietnam, and China. They're evading the top, or is kicking off some more strategic positions, or strategic invading of India and Pakistan. Yeah, it's all kicking off over there, but they've always been a couple of years ahead, kind of in the last few years, I think, with these things, and now they're moving towards a cryptocurrency as well, which will be very interesting to see. But yeah, I would keep an eye on China. I think what's been interesting, and what I've really learned about over the last few weeks more than ever before, is the macro environment of everything right now, and how things are going to be so affected by little changes in policies and in countries, and how much this lockdown, even once we get out of lockdown right now, how much it's going to impact things for the next couple of years. And I would definitely say, again, I'm not affiliated with this whatsoever, but if you do want to learn more about that, then go and check out a guy called Raoul Pal and Real Vision. It's $1 to sign up for the first 1 month or something, and then that's all I've been doing, just watching these videos every single day about that. But it does seem like if you were going to make any money out of investing over the next few years, you kind of have to be aware of what's going on in the world, because it's not so simple right now as buy an index and it will just go up over the long term. I mean, it will over the long term, but maybe for the next few years, it's going to be more up and down. So you can't just buy the market and track it. I think instead you kind of have to spot where the value is and try and figure out where the actual value is and what markets are going to be doing over the next few years, in my eyes. And that's what I plan to do. So it says Hedera Hashgraph partnership with Google generate 1.9 billion in 2024. Yeah, that's amazing. And yes, Hedera Hashgraph is a winner and definitely under the radar. The Fundstrat article is good. I'll have a look. And most crypto YouTubers don't mention, I'm going to call it HH because that's long to say, as they're all now on the ETH bandwagon. Yeah, I'll check it out, definitely. I know Ethereum as well has been touted by a lot of people because they've got the whole 2.0 coming out soon, and it has always traditionally lagged Bitcoin too. And people talked about the flippening before, where Ethereum overtook Bitcoin. I think it did briefly, but it hasn't happened properly yet. So I know a lot of people are talking about Ethereum. I have a small portion of my holdings in Ethereum, but nothing huge. I am slowly building a position there. I'd say I've got 20% of what I have right now in Bitcoin, and maybe a couple percent in Ethereum. So nothing massive, but it's something I'm looking at. But yeah, I'll definitely look at that as well, Hedera Hashgraph. And it'd be interesting to look back on this video in a year's time, or look back on where we are on this in a year's time. Because I think personally, what we've seen over the last couple of months with people jumping into the stock market and into day trading because they've been bored and at home, which, I don't know, that's a generalization, but I think a lot of people have kind of jumped into day trading as a pastime. I think that will happen even more so with crypto. If it does take off again, and if Bitcoin goes over 20 grand and you suddenly start seeing all of these initial exchange offerings popping off, and you suddenly start seeing loads of coins going 100x and people making loads of money from it, I think that'll happen again. I think they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. But I think that will happen again, and loads of people that are all convinced with the anti-state and anti-financial markets, anti-Wall Street new paradigm, millennials will just jump in to crypto and it will see another explosion. So again, if I can go back to that stages of a bubble, you know, we are gonna see this again to the same degree. Who knows? Will it be much bigger? Who knows? But I do think we're gonna get that kind of massive mania phase again in cryptocurrency. So it's how can you be prepared for it? I hope that helped. I mean, I enjoy talking about this, and I enjoy looking back and figuring out what the lessons were. Because I think as long as you're always analytical about it, then you can figure out what the future holds. You know, the future is often, I mean, everything cycles. It often looks very similar to the past, and you can't always predict it, but you can know better what to do when the same things start happening again. So out of all of this, I'd say right now for me, the real safe plays that I was going to say I don't see how they could lose, but that's a bad thing to say. But the real safe plays, or the safer plays for the longer term for right now, for me, are gold and Bitcoin. And that is what I've got a portion of what I'm invested in. So yeah, thank you for joining. If there's any, I'll hang around here for a couple minutes and see if there's any more questions. I enjoyed this. If there's not any more questions, then we'll leave it there. But yeah, thanks for joining again. Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming through. So thanks for joining, guys. I will leave it there. As always, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this and you're watching it after the live stream, leave a comment and I will reply to the comment as well, and then try and maybe answer that in tomorrow's stream too. For now, see you later. Have a good the rest of your Saturday, and I'll see you in the next one.